So for the metal banding, there were a few options. I could have gone with like a silver or a gunmetal sort of colour, or something bright, like especially for the chest, like a bright gold would have worked for that. But I kind of wanted to keep the theme going between the two because they're both kind of wooden items. So anyway, I've decided to go for this bronze colour from AK. It's slightly a darker colour than just straight gold, but it's not as dark as like, you know, hammered copper or tin, and not as dark as like a gunmetal. So that's kind of the middle ground, I think, in that sense. I if you hadn't guessed already, really love mimics. I mean, I'm part of two role play groups at the moment, but you know, obviously in the past and previous, like Dungeons and Dragons groups when I did D&D, we had come up against creatures like mimics. At the moment, I'm not playing Dungeons and Dragons. The group that I'm a part of, we moved over to a role-playing system called Pathfinder, when there were a lot of licensing issues and issues with the web page of D&D Beyond, which is not bagging D&D at all. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is an awesome game. I've had a lot of fun playing it over the years. Don't want to sound too geeky, but version 3.5 of Dungeons and Dragons was definitely my favourite version, but you know, I understand they have to keep reinventing it for newer audiences, as well as come up with reasons as to why you should spend money on them. So, you know, like I say, I don't want to bash D&D. It's the standard by which all other role plays are assessed and compared, I guess. But so these days, I'm part of a Pathfinder group, which is your fantasy sort of style, um, and also on a science fiction group where we kind of do more like a traveller style roleplay system, primarily with the same people for both groups. We just have different characters and roleplay in different sort of genres. But anyway, getting back to the topic, you know, I do love mimics, always have. When I was creating the really small collection that these two, the previous versions that I'd painted of these models, were painted with, most of the mimics that I had actually done at that time were dice. So dice mimics. And I think I've got all the photos on my website if you want to check out the previous works on what I've done there. But anyway, long story short, very long story, doing all this work on these mimics has kind of reignited my passion. So at the moment, I don't think you can hear the 3D printer, but it is whirling away and it is printing out a couple of new mimic models for me, more on this scale than teeny tiny. And yes, so I decided I wanted to print a couple of mimics for myself. I mean, the designs of these ones I already had from when I downloaded them the first originally. But yeah, I just spent a bit of time today on the internet and found a couple that I really liked. So one is like a winged back chair. It's like a very fancy chair, and you know, that's probably going to be a deep sort of lush red kind of mimic. And then the other is like a pot of gold. It's like, or a cauldron, you could almost say. It's almost cauldron-like, the design. But, you know, different than a chest. Obviously, I wanted different sort of things. There were some other designs that I was tempted. I looked at one that was just like a sack. Wasn't very fancy, but also a bit fun. There was a piano one, which obviously would be a long model and take up a lot of space if you wanted to do it at this sort of height, and I just wasn't sure. I thought it was practical, I guess. So how am I going to hold that without mucking up what I've already done? Sorry, just concentrate on what you're doing, Jay. But anyway, so the cauldron and the chair, the fancy office chair. Well, not office chair, could be lounge room sort of chair, reading chair. Those were the two that I ended up deciding to go with. So I didn't go for the piano because I was worried about the size of it. And there was also like a bookcase one as well, which looked very good, but similar sort of concerns. Okay, I think I'm going to have to do the sides and not the back, and do the back separately later. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of ways to hold this model other than the tongue. See, all my friends are into role-playing, and we've all kind of known one another for a very long time. And it's nice having a group of people that, you know, you regularly keep in touch with. And I don't want to touch the front of that. Maybe I should have thought of how I was going to paint it before I started. Front and that side. So I reckon I can do the side as well here, and then leave it, and then do the top part in the back. Okay. Pathfinder is a D20, so dice 20 style system, similar to Dungeons and Dragons. So I do like that style of roleplay. Obviously, you use dice to inject a random element and how you do your actions, perform your skills. Used to all be done off paper, of course, in what we call character sheets, but these days it's all digital. Not only I have my character sheet in front of me digitally on my iPad, which was the main reason why I bought an iPad. But the game master that runs the game, he can look at our characters, see how many hit points we have, like how healthy we are, how much damage we can take, all that sort of stuff. So let's come into the modern age. During COVID, we used a service called Roll20, and we were all stuck in our homes and desperate to kind of fill in the time and do some role playing. So that Roll20 is like I guess you call it a digital mapping system, so the game master can like create a map of here's where you are, and then you get like little tokens or your characters, and you can move them around and say, I'm going here and I'm going to do this. So yeah, basically it was a digital form. So we did that for a while, but now obviously all the pandemic stuff died down a bit, and yeah, we're back to face, although sometimes we have people that are away and he just like teams them in, or I don't think it's actually Teams, I think it's some kind of Google service that he uses, Google Hangout? I don't know, I don't really know. But anyway, yeah, it's all a little bit more sophisticated these days. Alright, so I managed to not stuff that up too much, which is great. And if I can get some more paint without repeating the gold incident with paint going everywhere, I'm definitely going to need to do some... okay, probably going to think about how I'm going to hold at this time before I start painting. So I'm thinking I'm just going to hold the top and paint the bottom is what we're going to do. So I will start with this band here and work my way down. Oh no, I've already put some on the red. That's alright. So the brown's only had one coat anyway, so there will be touch-ups of colours required with the red and the brown, no doubt. My partner has never really understood role-playing. I've tried to explain it to her a few times, but the honest truth is she just doesn't get it. Obviously very different upbringings. Her being raised in Japan and me in New Zealand and then Australia. And you could say the same about our taste in movies. Like, I think her taste is a lot more mainstream, whereas, I'm very much a science fiction sort of person. I mean, I don't mind action stuff and fantasy stuff and other things, but when it comes to like reading books, I'm definitely science fiction. Okay, that's fine. I do think this was a good colour choice. I think it kind of is just metal enough without looking like really bright and clean. Like a lot of the gold colours that I have are a lot lighter than this. And yet if I went something like a really dark tin colour, it'd get lost against the dark brown of the wood, especially once the wood gets its second coat. It'll then look even darker really. So no, I'm happy with this choice. But you know, having said that, you can't be afraid to change your mind and change things if you are not happy with the way things are going. I mean, I did that with the Mimic chest where I had painted the whole background of the chest as like the dark brown wood, and I was reasonably happy with it. It was like, well, it makes the teeth show really, really well. But as soon as I saw the small mimic, I should have looked at them before I even started the colour scheme, really. It was silly that I didn't. But as soon as I saw the gold, I was like, oh yeah, of course, that was my thinking at the time, was it's a gold treasure chest, so you want it to be like a golden background, like people looking at would just be lusting after the gold inside, because that's kind of like what the mimics do, is trick you thinking it's one thing and it's been another. That's the whole point of the mimic. And then as soon as I did that, I realized that, oh, right, so that dark brown's got to go. And so yes, it was a little bit painful. It was like 3 coats of white because, you know, obviously it was dark brown timber paint that I put in there, so just a coat or two wasn't going to cut it, especially if then you want to use a light colour. Um, you know, like a lot of things you can get away with if it's a lighter colour underneath, like, you know, you put a little dab of red on the white, it's okay, you can kind of cover it with 1 or 2 coats of white, but you put a dark brown on white, it's going to take a fair amount of rework to fix that, because the colour will just come through so easily. So yes, anyway, did involve a lot of rework, but I am much happier with the end result. So that's the important thing. I mean, it's a hobby, it's here to be fun and enjoyable. It's certainly not a burden to paint these models. It's my passion and it's what I do. So as soon as I realised that I wasn't happy with how that was going, I was like, right, let's fix that, get it sorted. And now I'm very, very happy with the yellow background. And no, the white teeth don't, you know, like pop as opposed to the way that they did before, but it's all thematically much, much better. Okay, that's all fine. Maybe up here a little bit more. Okay. And we're going with paint. Oh, I should have enough, I think. I did learn when I was priming this model that it can actually stand on its head, so I don't have to put it on the ground. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but you might as well. Not that I worry about marking my paint desk, because you know that ship has sailed. I've had a few conversations with the wife. You know, what can I say? She likes clean and tidy, and there's been a few times where she's like, "Oh, I should put down white paper," and then, you know, when you paint the paper, you can just rip it off and put down new white paper, and I'm like, "Yeah, nah, that's not me." Well, I've kind of painted the bottom 3 bands as much as I was going to paint the bottom 3 bands, but I might as well finish off this little bit of paint on the back. Pretty much had the perfect amount, pretty much. Just enough to do this little area where the two kind of bands join, smaller and the bigger. So, alrighty, there's not much more I'm going to get out of that. Okay, well, that is the start of the metal banding for the water barrel and the mimic chest. So the time has come to do the pink tongues. This is a colour called Intense Pink, which I just absolutely love. It's an awesome colour. I did the gold wash on the teeth, so I'm going to try and be a bit careful with my painting today, but yes, it's probably going to need some touch-up work. I mean, I have... Okay, how do I describe this? Probably the easiest way is to show the new models. So I am doing a couple of other mimics for myself, not as gifts. I was browsing through the different options online, and anyway, there's this wingback chair model. So much reflection, it's kind of hard for you to see it. And there is this cauldron slash pot of gold model, which I decided I'd print out and paint up for myself. So there'll be more videos coming of them. But anyway, when I was working on removing the supports of the cauldron one, the pot of gold, I just came to the realization that instead of just downloading this model and throwing it in my slicer software as I did, and getting it all set up and ship it off for printing, I really should have put it in Blender and cut it in two and printed it in two halves, removed the supports and then glued it together. Just there was so much trouble removing all the supports, not on this model, on the other one, but same sort of concept, around the teeth and getting in and getting rid of all that support. I was like, oh yeah, you really haven't done this the clever way. It really would have been worthwhile spending some time and slicing it in two in the Blender, which is the mesh software that I use, and then just, you know, you cut and key it so that it slots back in nice and easy, and yeah, that would have been a far more sensible way. And to some extent the same with this treasure chest as well. Like, it just would have been a much easier process to paint if I had just printed it in two halves, like the bottom half with the teeth and the tongue, and then just the top part. So I really need to do more of the preparation work, I think, with these models before I send them to the slicer and print them out. So that's been my learnings from that particular model, is that it's worth taking the time to do that. So that leaves me in a situation with these models though, where I do have to kind of paint around other things, and obviously that means there will be some rework required. That tongue looks so awesome. Need some more paint though. The water barrel mimic is obviously going to be a lot easier because it's not quite so hidden. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, this tongue is just going to be super easy to do, really. Okay. So if you watch some of the previous videos on these models, I pulled out the small mimic that I at first painted, and I showed the teeth on this model, and I will pretty much get the teeth looking exactly the same as this. So it's going to be a brown wash, the brown of the timber color, to kind of muck up the teeth and make sure they don't look clean and white. They look more monster-like. That's the towel finished. Well, first coat anyway. Happy with that. But yes, I did decide with the treasure chest. I mean, it's like a golden treasure sort of thing. It's the theme of it. I did decide to go with the gold wash. It's not not a wash. The gold paint. Which one was it? Ah, there we go. So I use this Game Color Polish Gold, but it is a very thin, runny paint, so it is kind of almost like a wash. You can see some of the white behind the teeth. So yeah, I'm very happy with the effect on how that ended up. Anyway, that is the pink tongues done. So I'm going to be working on the eyes. I've got my reference mug here because I'm aiming for the similar sort of eyes, slit on a kind of triangular diamond pattern in the middle, and then veins. And this is scarlet red that I'm doing it in, but obviously the eyes themselves are a lot smaller. So we'll just see how it works out. They're quite different recesses or areas for the eyes on the two models. Like with the water barrel, they're definitely more like human kind of designed eye sockets, and they're looking forward, whereas with the treasure chest it's more like on top. or looking up and forward. And so the idea is you do this in a deep dark red, and then it's actually a fluorescent clear, like a see-through orange, that I paint on afterwards. So. And then similarly, I'm not sure how well the squiggles will work on this scale. Oh, it seems to work alright. Because you don't want straight lines, they're meant to be like veins, so they don't have to be consistent either. Yeah, it's not too bad. So some thin and some wide is fine. Okay, I'm reasonably happy. I did have a small concern about there being enough space to convey the idea of it, because obviously on the mug there's huge eyes and physically it's much easier to do, but yeah, that still seems to give the sort of effect that I'm looking for. With this sort of thing, typically you just do the one coat of the eyes. I mean, you could do the middle part, I guess, with a second coat if you really wanted to, just to give it that little bit of extra depth. But I mean, for most painting we do two coats, but for something like this it's kind of hard to repaint in exactly the same squiggles and thicknesses and that, so yeah, I tend to just do the one coat, and that should be enough. Then for the clear coat, I think I did several. I think I did like 3 or so coats of the orange. I don't think that was just 1 or 2, just to give it that kind of richness. Now the design on this does actually kind of show eyes that are running lengthways, more like human eyes, but like I think I've mentioned before, I'm not having it. It's a monster, it's not a human, so I want there to be kind of differences. Okay, not sure that the vein concept is going to work on these ones though. It's kind of like a bit small, but that's alright. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's still alright. If you can see that, if I can get the camera to focus on it well enough. Monster eyes. Alrighty, that was just a quick little eye session. So this is orange fluorescence from Model Colour. Simple enough, I think. Won't need much, and we'll need a reasonably small brush. Okay, that's alright. Obviously you don't want to hide the detail. You still want it to come through, but you also want to tint all the white parts of it. Very small, so kind of hard to get to focus on it, but that is the general idea. Interestingly enough, when I did the mug, which I'm using as the reference for this, I'm sure with the orange I had to do multiple coats to get the finish looking the way I wanted it to. But this is very much looking like I'm one and done, like one coat is going to be enough of this, so I'm thinking it's got to do with the amount of detail and the size of the eye. It's obviously very, very different, but either that or I just didn't have the vortex mixer at the time and didn't mix the paint properly and well enough. Reasonably new addition. It does a very, very good job. But when I did the very first eye on that water barrel, it kind of like painted it instead of fluorescent clear coated it. I had to actually take some off, so I'm like, ooh, wasn't expecting that. I do love the ideas of mimics, and they're just fun to paint and fun models to have. I hope the boys like it. I was looking at a whole bunch of articulated models. You can get like articulated snakes and dragons and different sorts of things. And it's more like an actual toy, but I don't know, I just didn't find anything that kind of gave me a wow factor that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, I'll do that. Which is why in the end I decided to stay in my lane and stay with what I know. So hopefully they enjoy them. Alright, that is Monster Eyes now with the orange wash.